Welcome to C.S. Lewis Inspired. Have you ever considered how the Bible, as we know it today, has undergone profound transformations across centuries? The sacred scriptures, so central to Christianity, have been shaped, compiled, debated, and even altered by key figures in history. One such figure was Martin Luther, a man whose theological convictions and bold decisions continue to reverberate within Christianity today. But what if I told you that one of his most radical and controversial actions was removing 7 books from the Bible? These were texts that had been considered a crucial part of Christian scripture for centuries. The question is, why did he do it? What compelled Luther to take such a drastic step? And what was the impact of this decision on Christianity as we know it today? This wasn't an isolated decision, but part of a much larger movement, the Protestant Reformation, which reshaped the very foundations of Christian belief. This movement not only challenged the authority of the Pope, but also redefined how the Bible should be read, interpreted, and experienced. Martin Luther was more than just a theologian. He was a revolutionary who sought to restore what he believed to be the true essence of Christianity. In his quest, he came to the conclusion that some books in the Old Testament did not align with the core principles of faith he defended. Thus, he sought to purge what he deemed unnecessary, controversial, or inconsistent with his theology. But what exactly were these books? What theological disagreements did they present? And how did their removal shape Christianity as we know it today? In this video, we will embark on an in-depth journey to uncover the reasons behind Luther's decision, the historical backdrop of his era, and the lasting impact his actions had on Christianity and the Bible itself. So, get ready for an eye-opening exploration of faith, scripture, and historical transformation. The historical context: Christianity on the eve of Reformation. To fully grasp Luther's radical decision, we must first understand the world in which he lived, a time when the Catholic Church held immense power over religious doctrine, political affairs, and the very lives of the people. The 16th century was an era of unquestioned ecclesiastical authority, with the Catholic Church reigning supreme in Europe. The Pope was regarded as the ultimate spiritual leader, and his decrees were considered final. The Bible at this time was primarily available in Latin, a language understood by only the clergy and the educated elite. This meant that the common people had little to no access to the scriptures. Their knowledge of Christian teachings came solely from the Church's interpretation. However, despite its immense authority, the Catholic Church was not without its flaws. Corruption had crept into the institution, and one of the most notorious issues was the sale of indulgences. The sale of indulgences, a ticking time bomb. The Catholic Church had established a practice where believers could purchase indulgences, which were essentially documents that promised the remission of sins. In other words, people were told that by giving money to the Church, they could buy their way into heaven or reduce the time their loved ones spent in purgatory. This practice deeply disturbed Martin Luther, who saw it as a blatant corruption of the true Christian message. According to Luther, salvation could not be purchased. It was granted through faith alone. This growing frustration led Luther to take a bold and unprecedented step. He penned his famous 95 Theses and nailed them to the door of the Wittenberg Castle Church in 1517. These theses challenged the Church's authority and condemned the sale of indulgences, sparking what would become one of the greatest religious revolutions in history, the Protestant Reformation. Sola Scriptura, the radical idea that changed Christianity. At the heart of Luther's theological revolution was a groundbreaking principle known as sola scriptura, which means scripture alone. Luther argued that the Bible should be the sole authority in matters of faith and doctrine, not church traditions, not papal decrees, and certainly not ecclesiastical hierarchy. This belief led Luther to question which books truly belonged in the Bible. He became convinced that some books, particularly 7 from the Old Testament, were not divinely inspired and should therefore be excluded. But which books were they? The 7 books Luther removed. The books that Martin Luther removed from the Old Testament are known as the deuterocanonical books, and they include Tobit, Judith, Wisdom, the Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, 1st Maccabees, 2nd Maccabees. These books were widely accepted in the early Christian church and had been part of the Greek translation of the Old Testament, known as the Septuagint. This Greek version was the Bible used by early Christians, including the apostles themselves. However, Luther did not consider these books to be divinely inspired for 2 primary reasons. They were not included in the Hebrew Bible. Luther argued that since these books were not part of the Jewish scriptures, they should not be part of the Christian Old Testament either. They contained theological concepts that conflicted with his beliefs. Some deuterocanonical books contained ideas that Luther rejected, such as prayers for the dead, found in 2 Maccabees, which contradicted his doctrine of salvation by faith alone. As a result, he removed them from the Old Testament, and most Protestant traditions followed suit. The Catholic response: the Council of Trent. The removal of the deuterocanonical books was not universally accepted. In fact, the Catholic Church strongly opposed Luther's actions. In response, the Council of Trent, 1545 to 1563, was convened to address the growing Protestant movement. One of its most important decisions was to reaffirm the authority of the deuterocanonical books. The Catholic Church officially declared that these books were an integral part of the Old Testament and should be included in all Catholic Bibles. This solidified a key distinction between Catholic and Protestant Bibles, a distinction that remains to this day. The long-term impact of Luther's decision. Luther's removal of the 7 books from the Bible fundamentally changed Christianity. His emphasis on sola scriptura, faith alone, sola fide, and the rejection of Catholic traditions led to the rise of various Protestant denominations, including Lutheranism, Calvinism, and later, evangelical Christianity. While Catholics continued to use the full version of the Old Testament, most Protestant groups adopted Luther's revised canon, which excluded the deuterocanonical books. This difference in biblical canons is one of the clearest distinctions between Catholic and Protestant Christianity today. Conclusion: a Bible transformed, a faith reshaped. Martin Luther's decision to remove 7 books from the Bible was not just a minor editorial choice, it was a theological earthquake. His bold move reflected his deep conviction that Scripture should be pure, accessible, and free from traditions he viewed as corrupt. But was Luther right? Did he restore the Bible to its true form, or did he alter centuries of Christian tradition? The debate over the deuterocanonical books continues to this day, shaping the faith and beliefs of millions of Christians worldwide. What do you think? Was Luther's decision justified, or did he take it too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so we can continue exploring the rich and complex history of Christianity together. Thank you for watching C.S. Lewis Inspired.